We want to welcome you to our city commission meeting. We ask that you turn off or silence all cell phones. Meetings are televised every day on Channel 2 at 6 p.m. and at midnight. At this time, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by silent meditation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. First item on the agenda, old business, consideration of previous meeting minutes. Do we have any comments or discussions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the previous minutes of the meeting of January 10th.
Motion has been seconded. I begin voting with Commissioner Martin.
Aye.
Commissioner Leanna.
Aye.
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 Motion carried, 5-0. Next item on the agenda, second consideration ordinance. Second consideration ordinance number 8207, approval of special use permit for residential homestay, 723 South 10th Street.
Mr. Mayor and Commission, there have been no changes since the first reading. We also have received no additional public feedback on the item. The item is before you for consideration tonight.
Any comments or questions? Not, this require roll call, starting with
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
5-0. Next item on the agenda, second consideration ordinance number 8208, granting an electric franchise with Evergy Kansas Central Incorporated.
Mr. Mayor and Commission, again, there have been no changes. As a quick reminder, this is the city's renewal of our franchise agreement with Evergy. And it's before you tonight. There have been no additional public comments and no more comments from staff.
There's no questions or comments. This also requires a roll call vote, starting with Commissioner Martin.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Vote passed 5-0. Next item on the agenda, new business. This is open for anyone in the public who wish to have any public comments. That's related to items not listed on this agenda. And we ask that you keep your comments to 2 to 3 minutes, please. Yes, sir.
You never said it when we were playing basketball. Well, I was watching basketball the other night. Lewis Clint, 1816 Pine Ridge Drive, Leavenworth, Kansas. So you want my social security guy? Give it to me. Somebody already stole it anyway. Now I'm going through, after 70 years, I'm going through the punishment of the IRS, and I'll tell them where to go. This will not be in any order because something came up at the basketball game. For some reason, I hit something and your bridge came up. Okay, you're going to charge $84 fee for all vacant lots. All vacant lots. I guess you had 10, 15,000 people come in and complain about the roof, and now you're going to charge $84 for a house, probably $200 and some for residential, who knows what for, or commercial, who knows what for industrial. So I can't believe a professional group, your bridge group, came in and couldn't have an estimate of what it's going to cost. Because I just read in the paper, I don't know which one, because I just got back from Florida, and there was a price that you were paying for something, and it was $135,000, and they were paying, I don't know, $300,000. I don't know what the figure was. It doesn't matter. But you are going to pay something. Is the county going to pay something? Is Fort Leavenworth going to pay something? We know the feds will pay something. I don't know about the state. And you also have an easy access, like I-70, of hitting everybody with a charge. The camera takes care of it. You don't need to have anybody sitting there. I think it's poor when you're allowing people to live in Platte County, Clay County, across the border, and they're on low taxes and low sales tax, and we're going to pick up the tab for somebody making, I made $10,000 as a Navy lieutenant with 7 years, and now this guy's making about $72,000 or $82,000, and he can't afford to pay something that would be negotiated. Okay, I listened to the bridge. I don't know what a ooh and an all cost, but I heard a lot of ooh, oh, I thought you were buying wedding gifts or something. But you're buying a goddamn bridge. The bridge is to get you from point A to point B. You got all that superstructure up there, that's money. It's totally amazing. The walk around, where's it gonna go? Don't tell me that it's gonna go somewhere, because Chappie Chapman was on the board, that's Ed Chapman, had been on the board for years, about 50 years, and Platte County, they don't care about the 4-lane road unless we want to pay for it. It's interesting because there's no taxpayers over there, so they don't have to worry about votes. There's not enough voters over there. So just a small point, they talked about Missouri in the future. There's no future for Missouri on that 4-lane. Fees, simple process with fees. Okay, a couple weeks ago, there was a major violation of protocol, and I'm going to finish this if you don't mind, on protocol. Major issue. There was just a recent violation of protocol, and it says limited to 2-3 minutes. That's great. And I handed out pictures of since torn down and rebuilt. Now that's somebody putting some garbage in there, because I didn't say torn down and rebuilt. I said buildings that were no longer there, major buildings. So I think that something like that needs to be revitalized, and it says, no, you won't comment anything I've had to say. I can go along with that. But there was a recent violation of protocol. At the end of the meeting the other day, one of your
Louis,
county commissioners
can we talk? Can you and I talk after this?
Say again?
I said, can you and I continue this after this?
Say again?
Continue this conversation after this, please?
No, because it has to do with her. She made a comment.
Hey, Louis, but your time's up, sir.
Yeah, but she made a comment about me saying that there was no reason not to go to a different kind of government, and it wasn't what was in the news. So I think it's bad when she breaks protocol, and if I break protocol, or you, then something is wrong. But she broke protocol by commenting at the last minute. So stick with protocol.
Hey, thank you for coming up, Louis. Appreciate it. Thank you. Anyone else from the public that would like to speak, please? If not, moving on to our next agenda. Next item, consider abatement of administrative fees on nuisance special assessments, 1229 Spruce Street.
This next item will be handled by Sarah Bodensteiner, the city clerk.
Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, before you this evening is a request for a reduction of the mowing and administrative fees incurred at 1229 Spruce Street. Mr. Freesting and his company purchased the property at the September 29th, 2022 sheriff's sale, as the property was involved in a foreclosure action due to non-payment of the mortgage on the property from the previous owner. Prior to the sheriff's sale, there was a special assessment placed against the property for nuisance abatements totaling $16,009.58.
1,600.
Oh, sorry, $1,600, just kidding. In the past, the city commission has reduced the fees to the actual cost of the mowing incurred by the city and a $100 administrative fee. This would reduce the special assessment from $1,609.58 to $209.58. Typically, the commission sees these requests comes through for properties acquired at a tax sale, which are properties that have had several years of delinquent taxes. So just wanted to clarify the difference between a sheriff's sale and a tax sale. The property was purchased, again, by Mr. Freesting to revitalize. However, with that special assessment cost, that was just a cost they didn't anticipate having to take care of. They do plan to revitalize the property and sell it once it is completed. Mr. Freesting is here if you guys have any questions for him.
Any questions or comments?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Was there no way that Mr. Freesting could know before he bought it that there was a special assessment? Isn't that part of the
So-
announcement of the property?
So that is, so the announcement about potential liens on properties is taken care of at a tax sale. The attorney that handles that for the county makes that announcement during a tax sale. A sheriff's sale is separate and a different process. It's not handled by that particular person. So I don't know that process if that is announced. That would probably be a question for our attorney.
This also could have been something that happened after the petition for foreclosure had been filed and such, so the assessments went on. And for mortgage is generally a junior lien to these types of assessments, so they don't wipe out liens behind them when they're foreclosed, so these would stay on the property.
Yes, sir. The owner, sir, you would like to make a comment?
Yeah, so the,
Can
To
you
your question.
identify yourself? I'm sorry.
yes,
Identify yourself.
I'm Jeremy Freesting, owner of 1229 Spruce Street. I purchased the property in September. So to be perfectly honest, it's not part of the announcement. I've never had to do this, but if I had, now that I've learned this, if I had thought and understood about going to the tax office, the assessor's office, it might have shown up there. I don't know when it was assessed because I purchased it September 29, and then the taxes were due at the end of 2022. So it's possible that it could have been there. I didn't know at that time that I needed to check on such a thing. So I don't know if it was or not when it was posted.
Okay. I was just talking about any properties that are being sold at a sheriff's sale.
Yeah,
The information being available before you say, yeah, I want it.
Generally, all the liens are wiped out at the foreclosure, but if there is because this was assessed as a city ordinance, it was assessed onto the taxes rather than, so it was placed as a lien on the property, but then after it wasn't paid in 2021, it was then moved to a city ordinance that was placed on the taxes in sometime in 2022. That's my understanding. I'm not an expert on it, but that's my understanding of what happened with this process as I talked to the assessor. The gal who works there.
The more common one we deal with on the tax sale is the judgment, when it goes to the judge on the tax sale. Anything assessed after that, before the sale, is usually still on there. But they do make that announcement that you need to check or you need to look, and so this is just a little different, a little less common at the sheriff's sale than the tax sale.
But it was not part of the judgment documents, because
Right.
we did go look at all the judgment documents that were available in the
Yeah.
courthouse.
Usually a timing issue.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep, yes, sir.
I appreciate it.
Do you want to talk about your plans for the property and the timeline, maybe, just to help the
Yes,
commission understand?
yeah, actually, we just posted it for sale by owner. We went in the basement. It was a short sale because there was a flood or something in the basement, so we've already remediated that, and, let's see, Kyle, when we posted it. We posted it for sale. We have a contract from an investor who's gonna finish fixing it up and outfitting it. If he doesn't come through, then we're gonna finish the house and sell it on the market. So it is already ready for sale. It's in very good condition as is.
Yeah. Any other comments or questions? Commissioner Martin, you have anything?
No, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion.
I motion to reduce the 2022 special assessments on the property at 1229 Spruce Street from $1,609.58 to $209.58.
Second.
Motion has been seconded. Begin voting with Commissioner Bowder.
Aye.
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 Motion carried, 5-0. Next item. Yep, thanks. Next item on the agenda, bids, contracts, and agreements. Consider Camp Leavenworth event management contract.
Turn this item over to our Assistant City Manager, Penny Holler, and we also have Kelly Wenzel from O'Neill Events and Marketing here tonight.
Good evening, Mayor and Commission. The item before you for review tonight is the proposed scope of work contract with O'Neill Events and Management to facilitate the 2023 Camp Leavenworth Festival in September. Establishing the management company is the first step in the festival process. As you're aware, O'Neill Events has coordinated Camp Leavenworth and alternate annual events for the city for the last 4 years, and their experience in running the festival has been invaluable, as we initially started from scratch and it is now a draw for thousands of guests. As the community and commission provided input, especially on infusing the festival with more local involvement, O'Neill collaborated with us to incorporate those changes. Last year, the festival highlighted local craft vendors with a new makerspace, had a local food truck, purchased alcohol from a local business, featured local bands and musicians, created the business bulletin board to support local businesses, had Leavenworth Arts, a local nonprofit, run the chalk art contest, and added the 5K run. We anticipate work will begin shortly after the contract is approved, with working dates around the 4th weekend in September. The commission will receive regular updates as planning develops to get your input throughout the process. And as stated in the packet, the management fees are the same as they were last year. We've not seen any increase, and those fees are covered in the budget, and we'll use transient guest tax revenues. Kelly O'Neill Wenzel with O'Neill Events and Management and I are available to answer any questions you have on the proposed contract or festival planning.
Well, welcome. Do you have any big plans for 2023?
We have ideas for sure. We were really pleased with the way last year went. It was right along the idea that we really build a community event first before we really focus on visitors. We're seeing both, which has been great. So now we'll probably look at ways to continue that mission and kind of do a lot what we did last year and expand the run, which we got a lot of good feedback with, and really finding ways to now pull that community. We feel like the community is now accepting the event and getting into it and understanding where they can plug and play. So I think we'll be expanding that.
Yeah, I thought it was amazing. I attended both nights. Kids had a lot of fun, so definitely appreciate it. Thank you to you and your team.
Yeah.
Any other commissioners have any questions or comments?
Was there a report of an after-action review that was conducted, maybe?
Yes, we went through kind of the attendance and kind of all of the different things with kind of internal teams with the run and how we can update and kind of change, and we kind of went through that with Penny.
Having done that, can you just give me 3 ups and 3 downs? 3 things that were just more fantastic than you could have imagined, and 3 things that you felt, well, maybe they could have been done a little better.
So we recognize that there's a lot of family during the day, and so we are looking at some more additional entertainment and things that we can do to like just keep the energy from the stage, but not necessarily put bands on so early, because we realize people are wandering around, playing in the different activities. So we'll probably look at DJs or something like that to kind of run the beginning. We also look at how can we always expand the kids' activities, and how do we expand the run, continue to get more people involved in that, because that was great. We also talked about keeping it done kind of early. We recognize that people aren't staying till 10 or 11, that it's kind of going later till about 9. So we're looking at how we can alter the timing of that and just play to that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I thought it was very impressive.
Great. We're
We had
excited.
a good turnout, and trying to run festivals myself, I know that, that I think it's, what you're charging here is a reasonable amount. And I'm very happy that you're doing this with us.
Good. We love it.
Yeah,
Commissioner Martin? Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean it, it might have sounded like, but I didn't mean
No,
it to
you're
sound
right.
like, I want to know what was good about,
No,
I was down there and I had a great time.
Yeah.
I
You worked at Silent
participated,
Disco.
I worked the silent disco among other things.
Well, the
But,
number one thing is every event, you have to look and see what can we do better and what can
Sure.
we continue to grow on. And we do the same exercise, so that was a
Yep.
great question.
Yeah, Ed got some booze. If
Yeah,
y'all
I'm
ever see him
excited to-
dance.
Yeah, just excited to see how many more participants we might be able to get to the 5K run this year. So I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, we won't, the 5K took a little bit of a hit because we had Second Street closed for that, so we had to loop the run, which made it
Yeah.
a little, but we'll be able to, I think, open that back up, hopefully this.
Oh, that'd be
this
good.
summer.
Awesome.
All right, well, if there's no other comments or questions, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we, sorry. got caught off guard. Let somebody else move.
Move that we consider approving the contract with O'Neill Events and Marketing to manage the 2023 Camp Leavenworth Festival for $68,200.
Second.
Okay.
Second.
Motion has been seconded. Begin voting with Commissioner Martin.
Aye.
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 Motion carried, 5-0. At this time, I'm gonna request a 2-minute break.
We did 5
Yeah, let's do 5-minute break. Yep. 5-minute break, please.
till 6:25.
Yep, we'll return back at 6:25.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Taking a break? Okay.
Next item on the agenda, consider Leavenworth attainable housing proposal.
Sister Vicky, could I come up? Mr. Mayor and Commission, at the December 6th City Commission study session, Sister Vicky Perkins, representing Leavenworth Attainable Housing, briefed the City Commission on efforts by the group to build a homeless transitional housing program in the city. As part of the presentation, a request was made for City American Rescue Plan Act funding for 2 duplex housing units. At that meeting, Sister Vicky also mentioned that the group was partnering with DePaul USA to help manage the program. At the request of the City Commission, Chuck Levesque, is that right?
Yes.
Levesque?
Good job.
President of DePaul USA presented a more detailed proposal for the project at the January 3rd meeting, along with more information on the DePaul organization in general. Following that meeting, DePaul and Leavenworth Attainable Housing submitted a revised proposal, which is attached to the policy report and was available tonight for your review and the public's view. In the brief, the revised proposal expands the scope to include 2 duplex units, as well as the intent to purchase, rehabilitate, and incorporate 4 single-family homes into the project. I would note that while the scope expanded, the request of $600,000 remained consistent from the December 6th City Commission meeting. They did not include that. So tonight before you is that proposal. I have, if the commission is favorable, laid out 2 funding structures to allocate the funds based on benchmarks, so we can get into that after some commission discussion. But first I'll turn it over to Sister Vicky to fill in anything that I missed.
I think you did a great job. Actually, on the very first one, we did have to purchase houses and rehab also, so we haven't really changed that. We just got more specific about how many we hope to do. And again, a number of these will be for single individuals, 1-bedroom places, because the 7 houses we currently have all are for families, and so we have a number of individuals. We get calls frequently that need housing, so we're trying to do some that are individuals. We also hope that in part of it, we will be able to do some revitalizing of some neighborhoods too, to get some houses that now don't look very good and try to fix that up, and at the still time be able to put them into either apartments or small homes for individuals or couples possibly.
Yeah, just wanted to say thank you for your hard work, your efforts, your team, and everyone.
Great team.
Yes, ma'am. And everyone that's been a part of this process. I definitely appreciate all the services that you're doing for the community and the needs that you're meeting. I definitely want to let you know you do have my support. And just want to open it up to the commission if they have any questions or comments.
I think you're working awful hard and doing
For an 80-year-old.
doing for anybody. It's amazing the energy you have and that you put into this.
Yeah.
I did have a couple of questions.
Okay.
One, how long do you expect an occupant that moves into one of these homes? How long do you expect them to be there?
They really can stay as long as they want to stay.
Okay.
A number of them, like one that we have right now, I think it'll probably take a couple years to get her totally settled and ready. But when they're ready, we hope that they are able to see something bigger and better, because our homes are pretty simple. And when they're ready, we hope they're strong enough that they can move out into another neighborhood too. Yeah. But there's not a time limit on it.
Okay, so this can be transitional housing for them, but it isn't necessarily.
Should be permanent.
Okay. Will the occupants pay any kind of rent or anything like that?
They pay, they have to have an income to be part of our program.
Right.
So they will pay a third, approximately, it varies case to case, but they pay approximately 1/3 of their income for rent. And so far, people have been very, very faithful to getting that done. And then we pay the utilities for them, so they don't have to pay utilities, but they pay a third of their income for rent.
Okay, and, Sister, will the ownership, the actual title to these homes, will that be here locally?
Yes.
Okay, it
Oh, yeah.
won't go up to DePaul?
No, it's here.
Thank you.
Yep. Commissioner Better?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to say, I was at the Interfaith Community of Hope's 5th anniversary the other day, and talking to Miranda quite a bit about some of the successes they've had with getting people that, are really struggling, of course, without a home. That's the first thing you need a roof over your head, and how difficult it can be to have a family in a location like that without doors, you know, and it's just a very temporary thing. So being able to get people into housing, and of course they work with Welcome Central too, to be able to apply for employment, and it's a hands up, definitely a hands up, not a handout.
Yes.
And I'm very supportive of this project.
Mr. Hengler, let me clarify. DePaul USA will actually own it, but everything is done right here.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Martin?
Yes, I just want to say, and, you know, definitely, Sister Vicky, appreciate your efforts on this, and partnering with DePaul, I do appreciate the fact that they would be willing to kind of contribute about 19% in their funds on this project to add to the $600,000 if we approve that. So anyway, yeah, I appreciate how it's been laid out. Thanks for working with us on that.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
No?
Okay. At this time, I'll entertain it.
Can I,
Yes, sir.
if the commission does make the motion to approve, you would do so by accepting the proposal, the structure that I've had. So I do want to read the structure real quick out loud, just the two parts. Funding for land or property acquisition as outlined in the proposal would happen following an agreement but prior to closing. The city manager's office would confirm an agreement and contract have been completed, and prior to closing would issue that portion of the funding. For construction, funding for construction would be allocated following full building permits issued by the city. At that point, the city would expend construction funding in an amount not to exceed $600,000 total for the totality of the projects. That includes land and construction, so we would not exceed that $600,000 amount.
Okay. Yep, thank you.
Okay.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that the commission accept the proposal and instruct the city manager to work with the group to execute the agreement as stated.
Second.
Second.
Motion has been seconded. Begin voting with Commissioner Bowder.
Aye.
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 Motion
Thank you.
carries.
Thank you very much, and I hope we're able to improve the city even more. It's a great place to be. So thank you, sister. Thank you.
Motion carried 5-0. Y'all don't want to stay for the rest of the meeting?
Nah.
Y'all have a good one. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
All right. Next item on the agenda, consider police department license plate reader system.
Mr. Mayor and Commission, for the next three items, we have Police Chief Pat Kitchens and various members of the Police Department's administrative team.
Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, the Police Department is requesting the City Commission authorize the city manager to enter into an agreement with Flock Safety Incorporated to provide a license plate reader system at major intersections in the city of Leavenworth. In the 2022, and 2023 City Commission goals relating to public safety, the Police Department identified and was approved the following goal: to, quote, continue to evaluate technology to improve operations and transparency. Over the course of the last several years, we've identified a gap in our tool bag that would be necessary to help us fight crime, catch criminals, and see that they're successfully prosecuted. It was for those reasons that we researched and submitted a budget request for the 2023 to 2027 capital improvement program to fund the license plate reader program, and that was approved. We've had a number of critical incidents in our community, including such things as murder cases that LPR evidence would have been very valuable and enhanced our ability to apprehend, identify, arrest, and prosecute persons for those crimes. All across the country, here locally in the Kansas City metropolitan area, we've seen a stark increase in the number of stolen automobile cases that we're working. In 2021, we had 148 stolen cars in town. And in 2022, last year, we calculated 123 stolen automobiles. The police department has responded to just a number of different kinds of other crimes, included shootings, violent domestic violence cases, all of which we have a little bit of a gap in our tool bag, and we think an LPR system would help us with those cases. We also have a very strict pursuit policy for very specific reasons. We do reserve the right to chase, and we are allowed to do that, but we reserve that for very serious violent crimes. And we do that because of the danger element that exists. Very often, if there's a high-speed police chase, the person that we're chasing is often injured or seriously injured or killed. A police officer is injured as a result of that, or a worst-case scenario, a person who's not involved in that, a citizen on the roadway, gets struck and killed. You might have seen 2 weeks ago, our colleagues from the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department were involved in a high-speed chase that went over into Missouri, and an uninvolved person of that chase was struck, and passengers in that car were killed. That was a carjacking, and so that was a very serious crime, but even when it's a serious crime, there is the potential for tragedy, and so we're trying to avoid that by using this technology. On 25 occasions last year, the police department initiated an emergency stop with our lights and sirens, but the people fled. They did not stop. Very often, when they fled, they sped up and fled across the Blue Bridge into Missouri, or they went south into Lansing down to KCK. So our officers properly decided not to chase because of the level of event that they were trying to stop them for, traffic offenses or some low-level crime. So they made the proper decision pursuant to our policy not to chase because it's just too dangerous. But we believe an LPR system would help us still, and I'll explain in a few minutes how that would help us still identify them, be able to get an arrest warrant and pursue them for criminal charges without the risk of the high-speed chase. The police department did several months of research, and we prepared what's called a request for proposal and invited companies to submit a proposal to us to evaluate their LPR systems. We received proposals from Electronic Technology Incorporated, Flock Safety, Insight, and utility associations. An RFP requires a panel to be formed to evaluate that. I have some of those members with me tonight, Major Nicodemus, a couple of our sergeants here, Sergeant Wooten and Sergeant Stevenson, with some representatives from IT, and spending all that time. I'll talk about some of the criteria that we used to evaluate the LPR companies. We wanted an all-encompassing system that included the cameras, the ability to capture the data, store the data, and allow us to search the data. We concentrated on 4 major intersections in our community: 4th and Limit, 4th and Metropolitan, 10th and Eisenhower, and 18th and Metropolitan. 4th and Eisenhower, 4th and Metro, 10th and Eisenhower, 18th and Metropolitan. Those were the 4 that we were focused on because those are the 4 major areas of ingress and egress into the community. And our experience is most often when people leave, that's how they leave. We wanted to establish a 5-year relationship. That was pretty common among the companies that submitted their proposal. They would want a commitment of that length for a relationship. We wanted them to be entirely responsible for managing and storing the data. We've learned a lot over the last 5 or 6 years when it comes to body cameras and storing data and the expense that can be associated with. So we wanted that company to be able to do that. And then ultimately, we wanted to select the best overall system that was based upon performance, ease of use, and cost. And those were the criteria that we used. The committee reviewed all of those companies. They all either came in person or did a Zoom presentation, and we had the opportunity to interact with all of them, ask whatever questions, evaluate their technology. And it was based on all of those results that the committee is recommending Flock Safety as the company that best suits our needs. When we got the proposals, Flock Safety and all of the companies came in well under the budget from what we had asked for in the CIP. That presented us the opportunity to evaluate whether we could add a fifth intersection. And we are making that recommendation tonight, that there was value to adding a fifth intersection, and that is the intersection of 4th and Limit. And the primary purpose is that one of our high crime areas or problematic areas that we have in the community is the Woodland Village apartment complex. The difficulty is that most of the time when something happens, it's not necessarily the people that are living there, it's the people that are coming from outside of our community into Leavenworth, from KCK or somewhere else, staying there, causing trouble, and then when the event, whatever event happens, they flee, and they either go back to Kansas City or leave the community. And so we feel like there's a great deal of value of adding that intersection to help us on some of those trouble areas in the Woodland Village apartment complex. I'll just reiterate on the budget. In the 2023 through 2027 CIP program, the City Commission authorized a $65,000 per year allocation for the next 5 years for us to acquire and install the LPR system. So I'm going to do a brief PowerPoint presentation to talk about a little bit more information about the LPR system. Again, those are the 5 intersections that we would be asking for the LPR systems to be installed at. The 4 big locations where you come in and out of the community, and then 4th and Limit is where we feel like there's a lot of value in helping us solve particular problems in a high crime area. We'll talk about what an LPR is specifically. An LPR is simply a camera system that records a photograph and data of a car that travels through that intersection. The data is then transferred and stored and kept in cloud storage for a period, in this instance, 30 days, and it makes it available for the investigators to review that. Investigators can search the data by the make, model, color, license plate number, and other distinguishing characteristics. For example, if it has a trailer or damage, something like that. This is what an LPR would look like. On the left-hand side, the photograph is the camera that would be installed at those intersections. And in most instances, capturing traffic traveling in all 4 directions, okay? And that's on the right-hand side, a photograph of what would be taken. You see the car and the license plate. That is the photograph and information that would be taken, and that information would be stored and searchable if an investigator is working a particular case. Let's talk about how it would help us. So the LPR system and the data is connected to NCIC, which is our National Crime Information Center. That's the big system that we all use to share information. We would be able to identify vehicles associated with a particular crime. Let's say we had a shooting, or we had a bank robbery, or we had some serious crime, and we had information about the vehicle traveling in a particular direction away from the scene. We could search the data and see if the car that was associated with that crime drove through that intersection at or around the time of the crime. People associated with a particular crime, stolen automobiles. If someone got their vehicle stolen, either here or somewhere else, that information is entered into NCIC. This particular car is stolen. If that car drives through an intersection equipped with the LPR system, it would alert the officers in the area and in the community that that stolen car just drove through the intersection. It would present the opportunity for us, if time were available, to go and search for the car. Any kind of amber alert or silver alert that took place, we could associate that if a child is kidnapped or an elderly person that's missing that has dementia or something like that we experience once in a while, we could alert, and if that person drove through or that car came through where the LPR was activated, it would let us know that and we could take the appropriate action. Here's some specific instances in which I can point to that we could have used LPR evidence. If you recall, the shooting where the young man was killed at the Care Pharmacy in the last year. That vehicle came from Kansas City, the event happened, and then left and fled to Kansas City. Now, we were fortunate in that we were able to apprehend and successfully arrest and prosecute all of those people. But an LPR system at 4th and Limit or 4th and Eisenhower would have substantially enhanced our case and provided information that would have helped us and perhaps sped that up a little bit. Most recently, the young woman that was killed in Woodland Village was sitting on her front porch talking on the phone, if you saw that case. Again, we were fortunate in that we had the ability to ID and apprehend, and those folks have been prosecuted. I think you saw the sentencing maybe this week in the paper. Those people fled the scene and left out of Woodland Village and went through the intersection of 4th and Limit. We believe, again, that information would have been available to enhance our case. Here's one we have that's open. If you recall, maybe a year and a half ago, the shooting that happened on Eisenhower where there was a disturbance in Lansing, they drove through in the shooting. That case is still open. I will tell you that I'm optimistic that we continue to investigate that, but very clearly, if we had LPR evidence available in that case, I would feel I feel like a very strong opportunity for us to have been able to successfully identify and prosecute the people responsible. Again, it's open, but I'm optimistic that we're still making progress. One example of how it could also help, maybe in the summer, the latter part of the summer, there was a quadruple murder case in the state of Ohio. And the officers there were able to provide information to officers all across the country that this person is wanted for these crimes and he's driving this car. That person, about 2 days later, entered the city of Lawrence, Kansas, that have LPRs, and the alert was given to the Lawrence officers. They responded to the area, and then within a few hours, they were able to find him at a hotel in Lawrence and apprehend him successfully, and he was sent back to the state of Ohio. So those are some examples specifically about how LPR evidence would help us in a particular case. So let's talk about some of the costs. Here we've identified the cost that the companies provided to us as part of it. In an RFP situation, cost is not the singular defining element, although certainly is relevant and important. But if we were to do 4 intersections that we originally talked about, flock safety was still one of the low bids they tied for Insight. The first year, if you were to approve it, there are some installation costs associated with it, and those are identified on the right-hand side. But if we were to go with 5 intersections, it would put us at $47,000 a year with some additional, which is still well under our allocation in the budget of $65,000. Talk about flock safety particularly, why we narrowed and zeroed in on them that could have separated themselves over the other companies. The company Interaction is very concerned about entering into a relationship with a company for 5 years. If we're gonna do that, we were very, very cognizant of our interactions with them. Flock safety was very well prepared. They gave excellent presentation. We've had a number of conversations and questions. They've been very responsive. We've had an opportunity to visit with other law enforcement agencies that have flock safety, and they come recommended by our colleagues in the law enforcement profession. Flock safety has a very clear, defined policy that the data that we collect from the camera is kept for 30 days and then it is deleted and not recoverable. We believe that LPR evidence would be necessary most of the time in the first several days. After that, it may be longer than that, but most instances are pretty serious where we need it, it's available, but then at some point, 30 days later, it's deleted. So we're not keeping data indefinitely for no reason whatsoever. Okay, they were very good about that. Most of the other companies left it up to us to define how long we could keep it, and I think one of the companies said you could keep it as long as 3 years. We don't want to do that. We don't find that to be any necessary, and I think the public probably wouldn't like that too much. They have an auditing function. Most of them have an auditing function, but I, as the administrator, or Mr. Kramer, or you, can say how many searches are taking place, what are the officers searching for. We can have that information. We will do that as part of our policy, but that information would be available. It's a very good, robust auditing system to make sure that we're using it appropriately and we're complying with our rules. Flock Safety has something called a transparency portal. A transparency portal is we would build a link on the city's website, and some of the information about the LPRs would be available for the public to look at. They could click on the link, how many cars drove through this intersection, what searches how many searches are taking place, and that sort of thing. It won't be all of it, but we would make that information available to our public in case they were curious or wanted to monitor to see how things are going with the LPR. We found that to be a very valuable feature in terms of our goal about transparency and making sure the information. The data was very easy to search. Our friends at the Highway Patrol said that the flock safety, they have access to all of them all across the metropolitan area, any ones that the Highway Patrol have, and they, at least one of our colleagues was pretty highly recommending flock safety as the data is really easy to search. And then we wanted a connection to the area. Some of the companies were from Mississippi or Florida and didn't really have a connection to the Kansas City metropolitan area. So as a general sense about this, there are something like 250 LPR intersections in the Kansas City metropolitan area on the Kansas and Missouri side. There are something like 500 in the state of Kansas. Most communities have moved towards this in support of the law enforcement mission of helping us combat crime and that sort of thing. And so as a last piece here, communities in Kansas that have flock safety, they have, so the city of Wichita is pretty big. I think they have something like 200 intersections in Wichita, Hutchinson, some smaller cities in there, and then Platte City is in the process of an agreement with Block City. And so for those reasons and the information, again, I would be recommending. So let me conclude with the final request. So the police department would be asking you to authorize the city manager to enter into a 5-year contract with Flock Safety Incorporated to provide a license plate reader system for 5 intersections at a first-year cost of $54,154, and the preceding 4 years after that would be $47,500. There is likely to be an additional cost. We have to hire a local electrician to wire the cameras. Flock Safety does generally solar-powered cameras, but since the city of Leavenworth owns and operates the traffic signals, you can hardwire it instead of do solar-powered, but that's not the case all over the country and in some places. And so we've reached out to Laven Electrical Company over on 8th and Spruce over there to get some sort of estimate. We're still waiting on that. But I do believe that there would be an additional cost. I don't know how much. I'm anticipating several $1,000s. Certainly if it exceeds the budget, we won't do it. We could just rely on solar power, but we feel like the best way to do it would be hardwire. And we'll assess that when we get those numbers. And so with that, I'll close and open up for questions or discussion.
Yeah, thank you for this presentation, and, I know we're all in favor of doing whatever we have to do to combat crime in our community, and so I'm definitely in favor of it. Any other questions or comments?
No, good presentation.
Thank you.
Great, lots of information. That was good.
Yes. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was just going to say, Mr. Mayor and the rest of the commission, just some thoughts I've got on it, because I've been thinking about this for a little bit here and going through all the pieces. I mean, definitely appreciate what Chief Kitchens has done to collect information on the system and figure out ways we can continue to lower crime in Leavenworth. And I know everybody's definitely in favor of exploring those options. The concerns I have with a system like this, I know right now we just live in a time where it feels like from a public perception is that we just don't have a lot of privacy these days, and it's either something on our phone is being tracked or something, our TVs are monitoring us or something like that. And I know, we've got instances where some states may allow like the red light cameras and others don't. And I think it's still that way in the state of Kansas. Is that right, Mr. Kramer? It's still not something that's allowed right now in the state of Kansas, red light cameras.
Right, so it is illegal in Missouri. Kansas, no cities have pulled out because of that, but it's not specific. But yes, that is the case, that the legal precedent has prevented cities from doing that in Kansas.
Okay. And no, thank you. And so my thought is on this. I everything I've heard and what I've heard people say and the public in general, just just knowing there's going to be one more instance where their vehicles will be tracked, whether, you know, they've committed a crime or not. Absolutely, I do believe that this would help to, you know, assist in identifying, you know, any non-law-abiding citizens, you know, any potential, you know, crimes that may have been out there and distracting some of that. But for me, I have a hard time getting over the hump that this is going to be something that all of our citizens are going to have to, you know, in a new reality, that they are going to be tracked. Their you know, their whereabouts in the city and kind of throughout. So there'll be 5 intersections and you know, would definitely like to get more input from them. I'd rather see some expense like this be, you know, put more in the people's hands for a vote to decide if they want to agree to something like this. I don't know if we will have that option or not, Mr. Kramer. That's probably not possible, right?
I don't believe it's feasible. You're talking about like putting it on a ballot?
Yeah, just to get everybody's input on that, to, you know, weigh in on, you know, what their thoughts are, because definitely crime impacts them, and definitely monitoring their vehicles impacts them, you know, as well, and on how secure they feel, and from a privacy standpoint as well. So that's kind of where I'm at. I didn't know if is that even feasible.
I mean, anything's feasible. We'd have to consult with the city attorney on how that would work. How something like that would work. Yeah, I mean, it would be something you would have to add to the next election.
And figure out probably an ordinance, and is this a contract, you know, approving a contract, or is this a specific authorization? Yeah, I mean, we'd have to take a look at that. I mean, you would have, these are kind of an expenditures type thing, but if you wanted to add some sort of code provision of some kind that it would be limited, we could do, could do something like that. There'd be a full election. I will add, just to throw this out there too.
Yeah.
On those notes, because it did come up, last year the Kansas legislature did amend the Kansas Open Records Act to exclude data received from license plate readers from disclosure under the Kansas Open Records Act. So if an individual were to say, I want a list of every car that drove through 4th and Limit, for example, the city does not have to disclose that information under revisions made to the Kansas Open Records Act last year.
I appreciate that, Mr. Waters. Yeah, I guess where I'm at on this, I would not feel comfortable myself passing something for all of our citizens like this, approving a system like this without really letting them kind of decide whether that's on a ballot or election or whatever that would look like. That's where I'm at on that. I'm definitely open. I'd love to know if anybody else on the commission team has any similar thoughts or not. I realize I might be the only one that thinks maybe that way on that. But any other thoughts? I'm open to other comments. Or
Mr. Waters, people who are driving or walking on the city streets and sidewalks, do they have an expectation of that kind of privacy?
Not generally, especially if it's a state licensed, tag in that way. No, they would not. Now, you may have an expectation of privacy in like the belongings of your vehicle, for example, but the fact of being on a public street like that, there's generally not a recognized expectation of privacy in that fact itself. But I'm also aware that the ACLU, I know, has come out and opposed some of these initiatives as well.
Sure.
So I know that there are civil liberties concerns.
I know that I've got at home a very old, like from 1990, 1993, somewhere in there. I've got a picture of me, my car, and my license plate. And they wrote to me and told me, yeah, we got you speeding on the Autobahn. And
how fast were you going, sir?
Well, everybody thinks the Autobahn is just wide open. There are places where it's limited, and I didn't notice the sign, and boom, they got me. And it's great camera. It's got a great picture of my face, as well as, not that that's something great to take a picture of, but yeah, they do it all the time over there. And people just, the big thing is, people know about it. Nobody's kept in the dark that, hey, you go too fast, you might get a ticket for speeding, and we don't have to have a cop there to get you.
So can I interject? I just want to be clear.
That's not.
This is not that. We are not, this is
Oh,
not
yeah.
traffic cameras where we were
Yeah.
going to be mailing people tickets or any of that sort of stuff. That is
Sure.
not that at all. We're not doing that on purpose. The primary point of all this is public safety and crime and helping us solve crime. So I just want to clear that those exist, and I'm not one way or another, but that's
Oh,
not
sure.
what this is.
Yeah, no, I was just giving it an example of, these things happen, people know that they're gonna get pictures taken of them if they,
If you use the Kansas Turnpike, if you skip through it, it takes a picture of your license plate and will send you your
Yep.
violation. So the cameras of using a license plate is relatively.
Yeah, we've had all the way up to Maryland, had the tickets all the way up to Maryland through those toll roads and stuff. They get mailed to you later. For me, I think it's the safety
Yeah.
aspect and the not having to chase, not having to chase. That's a very dangerous thing, and I used to work in a hospital at night. And you just don't wanna have that if you can avoid it. And especially with carjacking and things like that, with children or abductions or anything like that, I think it's important to be quick and able to get the information that you need right away and get that. That's my feeling. And basically, we're all being watched all the time, so that's.
Yeah, and I'm also in agreement with you, Commissioner Bowder. Crime is increasing everywhere, including our own community. And the toughest thing is to get people to cooperate at times when a crime has been committed, just because they don't want to testify on whoever, the loved ones may be involved, and they choose not to say anything. I truly believe this is going to help the officers out to be able to make sure that they're able to identify, the suspects in this case, so.
Yes, sir.
you didn't go all the way out to
Well,
20th. You didn't go all the way out to 20th on Eisenhower.
We had a lot of debate about that. We really did. Settle on 10th and Eisenhower because generally speaking, if someone is going to try and leave the city, they're going to go through that intersection more likely than they would 20th and Eisenhower. But we did have a lot of debate internally about that, and ultimately sort of settled on 10th and Eisenhower as probably the most likely path where someone would take if they were trying to flee the city, either south on 10th or west on Eisenhower. So that was a lively debate.
Good. It was well considered.
Commissioner?
I appreciate, I appreciate y'all sharing, and I do appreciate your feedback and thoughts, and it's good to talk through that. I think where I'm at on this, I do believe it does start infringing on, some of our civil liberties, like you mentioned, Mr. Waters, and that's just something that, I don't know what the exact solution is on that, but I'm just more along the lines of the state of Kansas, I think, on their approach to having even cameras in the intersections right now at the moment. So those are just my thoughts. That's where I stand. But I wouldn't be in favor of a system like this. Just knowing that as it is right now. So
Okay, thanks for your comments. Yep.
Thank you.
At this time, I entertain a motion.
I move that the commission authorize the city manager to enter into a 5-year contract with Flock Safety to provide the license plate reader system for the 5 intersections with the money as presented.
I second.
All right, motion has been seconded. Begin voting with Commissioner Bowder.
Aye.
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 No.
Motion carried 4-1. Next item on the agenda, consider police department weapons upgrade.
Mr. Mayor and Commission, the second item that we have this evening is for the police department to request the city commission approve a sole source purchase of new handguns, holster sights, and lights for for use by police officers from GT Distributors Incorporated. The police department acquired our existing handgun stock in 2012, and they are in need of replacement. The police department has generally replaced our weapon systems about every 10 or 11 years, and this would be on schedule to do that. Our department range instructors and staff spend a great deal of time and are advocating that we switch from the .40 caliber that we currently have to a 9mm round. The most important element of that decision is accuracy. One of the things that we do is pay particular attention to what's going on in terms of trends across the country. There's a significant shift away from the .40 caliber to the 9mm caliber. So I have some concerns about things like budget. I think .40 caliber ammunition is going to be more expensive and harder to get because a lot of people are switching. So generally when that happens, the manufacturers make less of this and more of what's going on. So we see that as a trend, and we see that as something that's valuable. But again, the most important critical component for this is reliability and accuracy, and we feel like this is the right decision. The GT Distributors is really the only distributor of Glock handguns in this area, so if you want to buy this level of Glock handgun, you need to buy them from that company, that you can't put them out to bid. That's the purpose for that. In terms of the budget impact, GT Distributor provided a total cost for this to be $27,666, which would purchase 78 handguns and the associated holsters, lights, sights, and magazines. We would receive a trade value for the guns that we have. They would be traded into GT Distributors. But once that trade takes place, the individual officer that currently has the gun will be given the opportunity to buy that gun from GT Distributors. Very often there's some sentiment associated with a police officer and their firearm. These firearms have a small engraved Leavenworth Police Department emblem on them, and so I would anticipate almost all of the officers would take advantage of that, and it's for a far reduced rate. And so I would expect that to be the case. Again, the total cost after all of that takes place would be $27,666. The city of Leavenworth would have no involvement at all in the officers purchasing the weapons from GT. That would be a personal decision from them. That would be part of it. In the 2023 Capital Improvement Program budget, the City Commission authorized $87,500 total for our department's weapons upgrade. This particular purchase is just specific to the handguns. We would need to make some additional purchases of rifles and sights and those sorts of things, which will be from different vendors. And so we will apply the finance rules to that. I don't anticipate that those purchases would be over the $25,000 limit. That would require commission approval. Much likely it would be city manager authorization, but we would certainly follow the finance rules and make sure that we're in compliance with that. So I would ask you to approve a sole source purchase of new handguns, holsters, lights, sights, and magazines from GT Distributors in the amount of $27,666. And I'll answer whatever questions that we have or defer them to the experts that I brought with me tonight in case there's a specific question.
Do we have any questions or comments?
No.
No.
There's no questions or comments at this time. I'll entertain a motion.
I move that
Mr. Mayor, I move to, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I do move to approve, Mr. Mayor, the purchase of the handguns from GT Distributors in the amount not to exceed $27,666.
Second.
A motion has been seconded. Begin voting with Commissioner Bowder.
Aye.
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 Motion carried, 5-0. Next item on the agenda, first consideration ordinance for amending the Code of Ordinances regarding towing and impoundment of vehicles.
Mr. Mayor and Commission, the final item that we have tonight is that the Police Department is asking the City Commission to place an ordinance on first consideration of the Municipal Code of Ordinances that governs towing and impounding of vehicles in the city of Leavenworth. You might recall that on December the 6th of 2022, the Police Department was before the governing body during a study session. We had a lengthy discussion about the issues of towing. There was a gentleman in town that his family was involved in an accident, and he received some unnecessary charges as a result of the tow rules and the tow impounding thing. And so staff took away from that meeting direction to make some corrections to the ordinance to allow us to intervene and remedy that. So we've done that, and I would just point out particularly the language that we added in one of the ordinances, which states the tow companies would be subject to suspension or revocation from our tow list. If you remember that, we have the rotating tow list. If, quote, the wrecker or the towing service has applied abusive or excessive charges for the services provided. And so that's how we introduce language to solve that particular problem. If you might also recall, we have the tow rules that are developed by the police department. I was waiting on the outcome of this particular decision by the governing body, but if you're inclined to pass that, I intend to change and add a rule specifically that says what was originally the problem, which is that you are required to tow the car to wherever the family member wants it towed. I'm gonna make that a part of the rules as well as the ordinance change. And usually when we change the rules, we reissue it to all of the tow companies and make them sign it and update it. And so, again, I was presenting tonight, but then if we're moving forward with this ordinance, I intended to add that to the rules. And when those are prepared, I'll be glad to make those copies available to everybody.
Excuse me.
Yes, ma'am.
Does that have a limit on it as far as geographical area?
Oh, good question.
So, no is the answer, because if someone wanted it towed, I don't know, to Des Moines, Iowa, the tow company would have to do that, but they could bill the family member whatever they wanted to bill. In this case, if you recall, he wanted it towed to an automobile lot or to his house,
Sure, right, it was
And they said
close
we
by.
couldn't, and the tow driver said, I can't do that, I have to tow it to the lot. And so we're gonna eliminate that. I was paraphrasing the language, we'll figure out the right way to describe that, but
Okay.
I just wanna make it clear that if a person says, I want it towed to my house, or I want it towed to Zach Ford, or Man's Auto, or wherever, they have to do that, there's no rule that says that to do that. Again, I don't think it's important to not get involved in the business relationship, just that you can do that.
Okay.
And I think that solves the problem in most of the instances. Again, I would just share with you that we have a lot of leverage, the tow companies get a lot of business from the police department. We tow 500 or 600 cars a year, and so if they don't behave themselves generally, that's what we do, is remove people, which I've done before on the occasion.
Okay.
One of the other parts of the change, we did a thorough review of everything. One of the other critical parts of what we did, we discovered that Mr. Waters in his review discovered that we had a little bit of a problem with our ordinance and that we didn't have a clear language on how to protest. If we towed your car and a person says, hey, you shouldn't have towed my car, we didn't have a clear enough guidance on how to protest that. So we put some language in there that says, if you're upset with we towed your car and you don't think it was proper, you can go to court and ask the judge to overrule that. So we put, Mr. Waters, just to put all that in.
That's essentially building in due process rights, because you're taking away a property right of another person, taking away their vehicle. You need to have notice and an opportunity for a hearing to challenge a taking. Like that. So we built some things like that in there. We also did, we expanded on the opportunities that things could be towed for. I mean, they were very limited in this. We want to build in the authorization. And then there's a lot of old references to carriages, for example, that we decided we could take this opportunity to clean up some of that as well.
Right. So,
The downside is if there's now a carriage on the street.
I was just
now we
thinking
might
about that.
Now we might not know what we can do.
no, right? That's terrible. So as a formal matter, I would be asking the commission to place an ordinance on first consideration that updates the towing and impoundment of vehicles that would amend sections 4485, 86, 98, 99, and 127. And then further by amending chapter 44 and adding 44-220, 221, 222, 223, 224, and 225. We feel like at the end of all of that, that solves and cleans up and addresses most of the issues that we started with.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Chief. Do we have any questions or comments? Or do we have a consensus to move forward?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. All right, thank you,
Yes,
Chief.
absolutely.
Next item on the agenda, consent agenda, consent agenda. Chief, what?
Claims for January 7, 2023 through January 19, 2023, in the amount of $728,036.14. Net amount for payroll number 1, effective January 13, 2023, in the amount of $375,816.63. No police and fire pension.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded. Begin voting with Commissioner Martin,
Aye.
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried, 5-0. That's the end of our meeting. At this time, I want to go around the table to see if anyone has any comments, starting with our city manager.
Yeah, just a couple quick things. I do want to thank the commission and the public. Camp Leavenworth, there was a lot of, not a lot, but there were some things that we could do better. And Camp Leavenworth's a living festival and event that we want to look at each year. So, commission, public, if you have ideas, if you have suggestions, continue to funnel them our way. Some of the suggestions that came through the commission last year, they came from business people or citizens. We incorporated, and I think it made it for a better, richer festival. So keep those coming. It's your festival. It's the residents and the businesses and the commission and the people of Leavenworth. So let us know, and we're happy to continue to evaluate the festival. So I wanted to bring that up since we talked about that tonight. And then just finally, we have solidified April 4th, the countywide transportation study doesn't get, we talk about transit, but then the transportation study is the city, the county, and the other 3 cities have come together. The Department of Transportation said, you all need to get on the same page. You need to have priorities. If you want funding from the state or federal government for countywide road projects. And so we've been working on that in the background for quite a while now. So on April 4th, the consultant team will be before the governing body to talk about, we've had multiple stakeholder groups, a lot of feedback from the public in sort of which direction and what it's looking like for the countywide transportation plan. So that'll be on April 4th. And that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, thanks. Commissioner Martin?
Not any comments at this time. Just wish everybody a good rest of your week, and God bless.
Yep, thank you. Commissioner Leanna?
No, just be safe tomorrow morning with the weather. That's it.
Commissioner England?
Just going through tonight, that there's a lot of work being done in Leavenworth to make it just a better place to live, a better place to have fun, and certainly a safer place. And I just want to say thank you to everybody who's been working to do that, to make this a better, safer, fun place to live.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Bowder?
I just have one thing. I had somebody ask me the other day, they said when they watched the commission meeting, it looked like we make a lot of quick decisions and that we rubber stamp what the city manager proposes. And I think I tried to explain to her, and I think people don't realize, I mean, you see like we just had a first consensus here. We've had motions on other things that we've had on the big things, on most of the things that we do. We have at least 3 hearings of it here in the public. And then the city puts out a lot of information on the side too. And so I think, it may look like we're making decisions suddenly, but, we've done a lot of homework. And I know all of our commissioners, we all read our packets and we read about everything and study it before we ever get here. A lot of times we don't ask questions here, but sometimes we ask questions of our attorney or of Mr. Kramer to get, or Chief Kitchens or whoever, to get the answers. So I just want the public to know that we do look at every item very closely before we consider it.
I'll give you one example, Commissioner Bowder. The second consideration for the residential homestay tonight, that was 5-0, minimal discussion. That started with the development regulations. What does the city do with residential homestays? The development regulations had open public hearings, then they went to the planning commission. So those were multiple times. And then the specific item first comes to staff. It goes through the planning commission, which is a group of residents of the city of Leavenworth. Then notification is sent out to the property owners. Then we have a first consideration reading and then a second consideration reading. So that item tonight, which took 20 seconds, has had bits and pieces of probably at least a half a dozen to a dozen public meetings over the last couple of years.
Good point.
That's just one item. Each item has a story.
Yeah.
And all of these items are available for people to look at on our city website, leavenworthks.org. leavenworthks.org. You can see, the entire agenda packet that we had was out there on the website on Friday afternoon, and it's been there since then. So, and come on down here and watch it in person.
Yeah. And appreciate those that do come and attend the meetings. That does mean a lot. At this time, just want to have a brief discussion with the commission to talk about the gym at the Riverfront Community Center. I've had several citizens reach out to me inquiring why the gym is not open. We are currently looking for a gym supervisor, and I would like for our city managers to provide us with some updates and some history about the gym.
Right, so what the mayor's talking about is open gym, the ability for basketball playing residents to come down and just play basketball for a couple hours. So in the past, some unique characteristics of the gym. It has 5 entrance and exits to the gym down there. So at the very minimum, what we experience is people letting people in without going through the check-in process. But what we had over the last couple of years was an escalation of fights, and we got to the point where gym supervisors were quitting, where we couldn't maintain a safe environment for those looking to come down, parents sending their kids down there to play basketball. We couldn't ensure a safe environment without a gym supervisor. Somebody down there to alert police if there was an issue, somebody to be the adult in the room. So we have had that position open. We've increased the salary. We've indicated some flexibility as far as the hours that we would be able to offer. We are trying to open that back up to the youth and to the basketball players of the community. We encourage somebody to apply. It's minimal hours. If you're looking for year-round, you can also do some field supervision at sports field in the summer. So certainly trying, but I don't think that we could in good conscience open that up, knowing some of the issues we've had in the past, and encourage parents to send their children down there to play basketball. So again, we are encouraging it, but at this point, we haven't had any applicants for that position.
Yep, and if, where would they need to apply at if
So
they're
they can
interested?
get the application online, they could come into City Hall, we'd expedite the process. We do want to get that open as fast as we can. We understand that cold months and that's a good outlet. And we hopefully we can get that done quickly if we can get just a couple, maybe even one, the right person to come down there and supervise.
The ads on Facebook and Instagram too, I've seen it.
Right.
Yep. Anyone have any comments in regards to it? No? Okay. So if you're looking for a part-time job, I encourage you to apply for this position at the Riverfront Community Center to be a gym supervisor, starting pay $11 an hour. Its schedule's flexible, great part-time position. And the kids in this community need you to be present, so please apply. That's the end of our meeting. Meeting adjourned. Motion to adjourn the meeting?
I move that we adjourn it.
Second.
Motion has been seconded. Begin voting with Commissioner Martin.
Aye.
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 Motion carried, 5-0, meeting adjourned.